In Ukraine, dozens of female journalists have been risking their lives on the ground for months. They're reporting directly from the front lines, documenting the destruction and telling harrowing stories of refugees in desperate search for safety. Still with us, Molly Hunter, Sabrina Tavernise, and Hind Hassan. Molly, does gender make a difference when you're assigned to report from a war zone? Could some soldiers be reluctant to take you to the front lines?
Yeah, Steph, I think gender does make a difference, but I think not in that way necessarily. I was lucky enough in my first big tour here to have a mostly female team. I had a female producer, I had a female local producer, and we had a lovely photographer with us as well. And that makes a difference. When you show up to a story, when you show up to talk to someone with 3 women, that sets a very, very different tone. You notice different things as a team. You talk and interact in a different way with women. The story, Steph, that we really wanted to tell in and around Bucha when the war crimes started to become apparent, when people started to be talking about bodies that were, had their hands tied, when there were bullet shots. The story that we knew was happening and the story that we were really zeroed in on was sexual violence and was rape. Rape is a war crime. It is something that a lot of people weren't talking about at the beginning. We knew that it was happening. And I think it is something that we were able to tell. We interviewed a survivor, a woman named Elena. And I think, Steph, we were able to tell it because we are a team of 3 women, because we approached Elena as 3 women. We spent 5 days with her. We spent a lot of time with her before ever turning on a camera. And that makes a difference.
Sabrina, you have spent a lot of time working with, speaking to refugees, not just in Ukraine, but covering other wars in Iraq, for example. What stands out to you about this refugee experience? Several weeks ago, I was at the Poland-Ukraine border at a refugee camp, and people often think, oh, when you cross the border, you're in good shape, you'll be safe. But the desperation was real, and all people I met wanted was to go back home.
Yes, that's definitely true. I spent a lot of time in train stations and places where there were a lot of refugees who had gathered, and I think back to the question of women and why it's important to have women reporters, and why it's important to focus on women when you're trying to tell stories is that women, fundamentally are the ones often who are the caretakers and the people who have responsibility for the bodies of their children. And, there were so many women that I talked to who said, I didn't want to leave, I wouldn't have left, but I had to be responsible for my daughter. And I, for that reason, I couldn't stay in Kharkiv. I had to take the chance to take this trip, but it's like, my head is here in the train station with trying to be safe, but my heart is still there. They were very, very resolute that this was not something that they thought was permanent. It was not something that they were going to leave and then come back when everything was over. I mean, it's sadly a theme, I think, in a lot of conflict zones, that when you're a refugee, you always leave and think it's just for a week, and then suddenly your child is starting school somewhere else. But I think it's very, very, I think women often have the stories of the war. I mean, that was the case in Iraq as well. I think as women, we all know, you got to go into people's kitchens. You got to go into places where, women would talk to you about, who was killed in their neighborhood last night. How do you sort of enter the home of a family, as a man, and talk to women in Iraq? It's very difficult. So I think that we have advantages, exactly as Molly said, in some ways you wouldn't really expect.
And I want to know what this is like for you. You have gone from Ukraine to the West Bank. How did the challenges change with these different assignments? So when you were an aspiring journalist, did you say war correspondent? That's what I want to do?
No, I didn't. I wanted to tell the stories of people who have been through difficult times and through struggles, as somebody who is from Iraq and has family there. And actually, I agree with my 2 colleagues that as women, we can end up in situations where we are able to tell those human stories incredibly effectively. I remember a colleague many years ago saying to me that doing refugee stories or doing stories from refugee camps they're the soft stories, and the hard story was the front line. And they referred to very specifically, oh, I don't mind, you people with less experience, whatever, doing the soft stories. They're not soft stories. These are hard, painful, harrowing stories that need to be told. And a lot of us journalists, the reasons why we do this is so that we can tell those stories. And the way that news has changed now, the way that war reporting has changed now, is that there are more women, there are more people from different backgrounds, there are people from different class backgrounds, and all of that contributes to be able to tell, empathize, get into spaces that we haven't got into spaces before in order to tell those really, really important stories.
And we are so grateful that you are all telling these really important and really difficult stories. I appreciate and admire you all. Thank you so much, Molly Hunter, Sabrina Tavernise, and Hind Hassan. Thank you all.